Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Can I just check whether my PowerPoint is being presented or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Just 1 second. Where am I? Is it being shared?
No, ma'am.
So, now,
No, ma'am.
is it shared now?
Full screen not. It is not there.
Yeah. I think now it's okay, right?
Yes, ma'am. You can start, ma'am.
So, I can start my webinar. So, very good afternoon to all of you. Uh, this is a very very welcome session for me because I get to interact with so many of you in so many different places, and I think this topic, competency based assessment in science, is a very timely topic, and many of us find it difficult to deal with competency based assessment in science. So let us have a session which goes in depth into competency based assessment. I would have loved this session to be interactive, but I think speaking is not allowed, so it's fine. It will have to be one way only. But I welcome you all to the session. So, to begin with, what are we going to do in this session? In this session, our objectives are threefold. First is to learn why we are talking about competency based assessment, what is the need. The second is what exactly is competency based assessment and what does it involve. And the third is how to carry out competency based assessment. What are the different requirements, nuances of this kind of assessment? So, why are we talking about this? We are talking about competency based assessment because our NEP now talks about competency based education. And competency based assessment is a part of competency based education. So, why we are saying that there is a shift? Because our traditional education required year-end exam, and on the basis of that one exam, the child's fate used to be decided whether he's going to be promoted to next class or not. But it never ensured whether that child has succeeded in that year-end examination by rote memorization, or is he capable of using that knowledge that he has gained throughout the year. So NEP says, NEP emphasizes that we should be moving beyond this summative assessment system and beyond the system which encourages rote learning. And there is a shift in the focus. Now, the new competency based education, which is proposed in NEP 2020, says that the assessment should be more regular and it should be formative in nature. More regular means time to time. In fact, every day in the class we should have assessment. Why? Because the purpose of assessment would be to identify what are the weaknesses of individual students and how we can support them in learning. And now the the teaching, learning and assessment, everything has to be competency based. What is the meaning of competency based? The meaning of competency based is that now the emphasis is not on just what the child knows, the emphasis is on what the child does with that knowledge in real life, surrounding his home, surrounding his locality, surrounding his school, wherever he goes. is he able to apply the knowledge that he has gained or not? Whereas earlier we were just assessing what is the knowledge that the child possesses, whether it was factual knowledge or procedural knowledge. But now we want to focus in new competency based education, we want to focus on what the child can do with that knowledge, how he is applying it, how he is demonstrating his skills. And this assessment which is happening daily in the classroom or in written tests or uh, in some procedure that the child is following or some project that is carrying out, whether it develops his learning or not. The learning should gradually develop with each task. The child should be able to improve upon what he knows, and the education should be more focused on higher order skills. Higher order skills means analysis, critical thinking, conceptual clarity, problem solving, communication, collaboration. All these are the skills. uh, so, if the education is competency based and requires all these things to be in the assessment, then our criteria for competency based assessment should be clear to each one of us, because we are the people who have to implement it in the classroom. So, what are the key features of competency based education that we have to keep in mind when we design a competency based assessment? I'm repeating, we are going to discuss now the key features of competency based education which have a bearing on competency based assessment. So, what are the key features? First of all, it envisages equity for all students. Now, equity does not mean that we are giving the same lecture to all students, we are giving the same resources to all students. No. Equity for all students means the outcome of learning should be same for all the students. If the outcome of learning must be same for all the students, then obviously we will have to provide differentiated support, because one child may need more hand holding, another child may be quicker than even the teacher. So the requirements of each child are different, and they are based on individual needs and atmosphere, interest, and so many factors. And so, how we have to provide that differentiated support which will ensure the same learning outcome. And to be able to do that, obviously, we need to have the evidence of how much the child knows and to what degree he is able to perform. So we not only want to check the knowledge, but we also want to check the skill. And the new education policy says that now the emphasis will be on demonstration of mastery, and that will be judged from the evidence of mastery. So we have to first get the evidence, then only we can evaluate the level of proficiency or level of mastery. And to be able to do that, we have to have regular assessments, formative assessments, which are based on self assessment by the children as well as peer assessment by the children. That means the child himself should be able to reflect on his progress, must be able to identify how much he is lagging in being able to demonstrate the required skills. That may come from his own reflection, also it may come from peer assessment. Peer assessment means assessment by friends. And even peer assessment would be a way of learning for a child, because when he assesses somebody else's work in his class, his classmates' work, he will understand what how his own learning can be improved, how better answers will tell him that how he can improvise on his own answers or his own skills or his own capabilities. So, the key features of competency based education tell us how the competency based assessment has to be done and why it is required. It is required because we want same level of outcome for all the students in a particular class. which will mean that we need to assess each individual student's learning needs. That can be assessed only when we have some evidence of their performance and the level of mastery that they have gained. And for this, we would require to have very, very frequent assessments which are used for learning based on children's own reflections, reflections on their peers' work, and also the teacher's assessment of students' level of mastery. So, if we are to do all this, then what will be the key features of competency based assessment? So, how do we understand competency based assessment going from here? So, first feature is that now the assessment assesses the demonstration of learning outcomes. Earlier, we used to have some learning objectives that the child will learn, let us say, about different types of motions. But now we want demonstration of learning outcomes. For example, child should be able to demonstrate rotatory motion, child should be able to demonstrate oscillatory motion, the child should be able to demonstrate through a model how to convert a linear motion of one object into rotatory motion of another object. The child should be able to measure the speed of an object. The child should be able to calculate the acceleration of an object. The child should be able to design a method by which he can collect data about the distances covered, the speed, calculate the velocity, and calculate acceleration from thereof. So these are all demonstrations of certain learning outcomes that we are going to assess. So emphasis is not on the objective of the teacher. The emphasis is on the demonstration of learning outcome by the student. And then once the student demonstrates a particular learning outcome, we also need to judge what is the level of mastery or what is the level of proficiency. If demonstration of a particular learning outcome requires three levels of proficiency, so has the child been able to perform only up to level 1 or up to level 2 or up to maximum level 3? Because only when we are able to judge this, we will be able to provide some support to him so that he can complete all the three levels of proficiency. Then the policy emphasizes that the assessment should be uh, of real world application. We just talked earlier about that the education should test not the knowledge but how the child uses the knowledge. So how the child is using his how he's applying his concepts or demonstrating his skills in real world situations. And also the assessment task should be authentic. Now what do we mean by authentic or what do we mean by authenticity? Authenticity means age appropriate, related to child's age. Supposing we ask a class 6 child to suggest methods to prevent floods from occurring in a particular region. Now, the child may not have had any exposure to rivers. The child may live very far from rivers. The child has no idea about how floods affect an area. The child may not be having enough knowledge or level, cognitive level to be able to go to understand the nuances of floods. So it should be authentic. The assessment problem or question or scenario should be authentic, means it should be within the experience of the child. If a child is not living in, let us say, in cold area, like let's say snow covered areas, it will be very difficult for a child to answer a question why skiing is possible on ice. Only from rote memorization the child is going to be able to answer this question and not out of his own experience. So the emphasis is on Individual child's environment needs, exposure, interest, his family background, and accordingly we identify the level and that authenticity, and design the assessment problems. And last is that our assessment should have higher order skills. Higher order skills means analyzing, evaluating, creating, problem solving. These are the skills which should reflect on our assessments. We know, we when we take up a paper and analyze, we find that maximum questions are asking for recall of information or explanation of understanding, or at the most application of theory for solving numericals. But the new education policy says that our education should involve nurturing of higher order skills. And that will not happen just by having year end examination, which involves lot of analysis and critical thinking questions. This can happen only when we do it continuously in our classrooms, in our daily assessment of classroom situations, where we have to give them questions which make them practice analyzing situations, which make them practice analyzing data, getting inferences from there, then evaluating the data against certain criteria, whether the data is following that criteria or not, what are the implications of this data, all those higher order thinking skills. And using that data, can they identify the problem, can they design or suggest any solution, can they assess whether the solution suggested by them is effective or not. So these are all the higher order skills, and they cannot be nurtured by just one year end exam. It has to be a continuous process. So there has to be a scheme of assessment which happens daily. With this we call as assessment for learning. Assessment for learning means questions that we give them and we ask them to answer, so that they can learn by, while answering the questions, they can learn from seeing the answers given by their peers. Teachers can assess that whether the student is able to analyze this situation or not. Does the teacher need to give more practice assignments in the class and as home assignment to be able to nurture this skill of analyzing or critical thinking or evaluating, and so on and so forth. So all this has a bearing on competency based assessment. Now, going forward from here, if we have to perform competency based assessment, then we should know what are the competencies exactly pertaining to our particular subject. You see, no doubt that 21st century skills are communication, critical thinking, problem solving, uh, global citizenship, then collaboration, communication, critical thinking, all these. But then, how every subject should become a vehicle to achieving these general 21st century competencies will be realized through specific subject competencies. So we should know what are the competencies in science that we have to assess. So now we come to the next part of our session, which is the what. So there are three core competencies that CBSE has specified that should be nurtured in the students. First competency is the child should be able to explain phenomena scientifically. The second competency is the child should be able to evaluate and design a scientific inquiry. And the third is the child should be able to interpret data and evidence scientifically. So these are the broad three core capacity competencies that CBSE wants all the children to achieve by end of class 10. What are those three? I repeat: explaining phenomena scientifically, evaluating and designing scientific inquiry, and interpreting data and evidence scientifically. Now, I think it's better if we look into each one of the competencies in greater detail, because these are broad competencies. But what are the smaller skills or smaller practices which will enable children to achieve these competencies? So let us look at explaining phenomena scientifically. What ability is this? This is the ability of a child to use knowledge to explain, predict, and describe scientific concepts and real world occurrences. So, you see, earlier our emphasis was on giving knowledge, giving definitions, giving relationships between different quantities, stating the laws, describing the procedures. But now we want, or NEP 2020 wants, that children should be able to use that knowledge, that definitions, those diagrams, those laws, those relationships, those procedures, to do what? To go beyond that knowledge and use it to explain, predict, and describe concepts and real world occurrences. So, what are those practices which will enable the child to obtain this ability? So, recognizing, offering, and evaluating explanations for a range of natural and technological phenomena through what practices? Through recalling and applying appropriate scientific knowledge. So, recall and application is important. Identifying, using, and generating explanatory models and representations. Now, models does not mean just three-dimensional models. Model is a representation of anything abstract or something which is not visible at one time. For example, photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis nobody can see, right? We only have a model in our mind, a scheme that when the light is falling on a leaf, using the light, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and certain chemicals within itself, the leaf will be producing its food and release oxygen. Now, this is a model, and this model is often represented in books by diagrams, or the diagram is a representation of this abstract thing which nobody can see, right? So the children should be able to identify, use, and generate explanatory models for some phenomena that they have seen. Then making and justifying appropriate predictions. So, if a child understands that photosynthesis can happen only in presence of sunlight, then if we ask him that if you keep a plant all covered so that no sunlight falls on it, can he make a prediction whether the plant will grow or not? If we say, okay, inside that coverage, if we put a small light bulb with green light on it, will the plant grow or not? Again, can the child make predictions or not? So this is the skill that the child should be able to have. Another skill is offering explanatory hypothesis, explaining the implications of scientific knowledge for society. If global warming is happening, can the child understand the implications for society, for the human civilization? What will be the implications of global warming? Okay. So how do we assess whether the child is able to explain phenomena scientifically or not? Is by seeing whether he is able to recall and apply, whether he is able to identify, use, and generate explanatory models, whether he can make and justify appropriate predictions, whether he can offer explanatory hypotheses, whether he can explain implications, and so on and so forth. So, if we know that these are the learning outcomes that we require, shouldn't our assessment be testing these learning outcomes, whether the child has achieved these learning outcomes or not? So it's extremely important that we understand what are the competencies that we have to nurture, and what are the smaller learning outcomes or skills which we have to assess, which will serve as evidence that child has gained this particular competency or not. Only then we will be able to design proper assessment questions or assessment papers. The second competency is evaluating and designing scientific inquiry. Now, what does it mean? It means the ability to understand, critique, and design scientific investigations. Critique means to be able to say whether this procedure of scientific investigation is right or not right, or there's a flaw in it, and why does the child think there is a flaw. Then can he identify different variables in a situation? Can he understand that which variables must be controlled? What could be the sources of error? All this is the ability to evaluate and design scientific inquiry. Now, this is a broad competency. So, what are the smaller skills which will go towards achieving this broad competency? Let us see those. So, describing and appraising scientific investigations and proposing ways of addressing questions scientifically will be through what skills? One, identifying the question explored in a given scientific study, right? So, when Galileo observed the sky, what was he questioning? Or when Ptolemy was looking at the sky, what was they questioning? Is the earth the center of the universe, or is the sun the center of solar system, or is earth the center of solar system? So what is the question that was being explored? Then distinguishing questions that are possible to investigate scientifically, right? So supposing a child is asked that there are three papers. One paper is a filter paper, another paper is A4 sheet paper, the third paper is oiled paper. Now, is it possible to investigate which one will sink more quickly on in water? So can he ask different questions? What are the properties of a filter paper which make it different from A4 sheet? What are the properties of oil treated paper which make it different from other three? So what are the questions that the children can ask so that they can investigate something scientifically? Proposing a way of exploring a given question scientifically. So, how will they go about exploring the answers to a question scientifically? Evaluating ways of exploring a given question scientifically, describing and evaluating a range of ways that scientists use to ensure reliability of data and the objectivity and generalization of explanations. So, these are some of the smaller skills which must be nurtured in the class. And how do we know that these skills have been achieved or not? Only through our assessment. So, each one of these smaller skills must be taken up in our assessment scheme in one chapter or the other, so that by end of the science course in class 9th and 10th we know that child is now competent in evaluating and designing scientific inquiry. The last competency is interpreting data and evidence scientifically. Nowadays, there is so much of information on the net, but how do we know which information is reliable and which is not? So, if we question the data scientifically, then we might be able to get understand that. But then, doing it right from the beginning of education will ensure that children have become proficient in interpreting the data, identifying the patterns in the data, and what does the pattern indicate. Can we relate to the pattern relate the pattern to a particular cause in the surroundings. All this means getting proficiency in interpreting data and evidence scientifically. So, this is the ability to analyze and evaluate scientific data, graphical representations, tables, and evidence. Why? To draw conclusions and form arguments. Argument does not mean arguing with somebody. Argument means saying that if this is what I am proposing, why I am proposing, this is the logic, this is the example, this is the evidence. So that is the meaning of forming the argument. So, how do the children gain this particular competency? So, by analyzing and evaluating scientific data, claims and arguments in a variety of representations, and drawing appropriate conclusions through doing what? Through transforming data from one representation to another. For example, changing the data from the table form to a graphical form, then analyzing and interpreting data and drawing appropriate conclusions. So whether you can look at a graph and can you say whether the rate of chemical reaction is increasing with time or is it decreasing with time, or whether an object is moving with uniform velocity or with variable velocity, or is it moving with constant acceleration. So can the child analyze and interpret data to draw appropriate conclusions or not? Then identifying the assumptions, evidence, and reasoning in science related texts. So there are many assumptions. For example, in class 10, when we teach optics and image formation in mirrors, we always say that the aperture of mirror should be very small and the incident rays should fall on the mirror very close to the principal axis. So whether in a given situation, supposing we say that there is a mirror which is semicircular, or which is hemispherical, right? And a ray falls just near the top edge. Will it pass through the focus after reflection from the concave mirror, which is hemispherical? Now, if the child remembers that what he has studied, that the ray passes through focus only when it falls on the mirror, which has a very small aperture, and the ray comes parallel and very close to the principal axis. But in this case, the mirror is hemispherical. So instead of going through the focus, where will the ray go? It will go towards the pole of the mirror. So whether he can understand that every ray which is falling on the mirror will follow the laws of reflection, then he will be able to identify assumptions, evidence, and reasoning. Then distinguishing between arguments that are based on scientific evidence and theory and those based on other considerations. So if if all the newspapers publish a story that today Ganeshji drank milk, the idol in temples, Ganeshji drank milk. So this is a lot of data, lot of evidence in the newspaper. But will they be able to distinguish between an argument that is based on scientific evidence and another argument which is based on newspaper data? Right? So that is what we want the children to be able to do, distinguish between scientific data and evidence and the data and evidence which is fabricated or which is uninformed. And then evaluating scientific arguments and evidence from different sources. That is what I was just talking about: newspaper, internet, and journals. Okay. So, broadly speaking, we have three competencies and then smaller skills, which must be the learning outcomes of the whole education in science in class 9th and 10th. Why 9th and 10th? Right from class 1 to class 12, that is, these three are the main scientific competencies. But CBSE has specifically allotted a percentage for each of these competencies, and this is the CBSE science assessment objectives. So we have mentioned three broad competencies, and CBSE has further broken them up into four. So the first one is demonstrate knowledge and understanding of scientific ideas, techniques, and procedures. This belongs to the broad competency of explaining phenomena scientifically. Then the second one here is apply knowledge and understanding of scientific ideas, techniques, and procedures to classroom and real world situations. Now, this is also belonging to explain phenomena scientifically. So, what is the difference between first competency and second competency here? AO1 is only about demonstrating knowledge and understanding of scientific ideas, techniques, and procedures. AO2 is about applying that knowledge and understanding to classroom and real world situations, right? So these are two sides. One is knowledge, and the other is what the child does with that knowledge. Okay. Then AO3 is analyze scientific information and ideas to present data, interpret patterns and relationships. Now, this is what we discussed in our third competency, interpreting data and evidence scientifically. Then AO4 is evaluate scientific information to make judgments and draw conclusions and develop and improve experimental procedures. So in our second competency, broad competency, we talked about whether the child is able to design and evaluate scientific investigative inquiry. So here they have made two parts into it. They are saying that evaluate scientific information to make judgments and draw conclusions, and also develop and improve experimental procedures. So this is the bifurcation into little smaller objectives, and then look at the percentage of marks that have been allotted in class 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Today we are concerned with secondary level assessment. So let us look at the ninth and 10th. So 30% to AO1 and 30% to AO2. That means almost 60% weightage is to explain phenomena scientifically. Then 20% weightage is to presenting data and drawing inferences from there, identifying patterns and relationships. This is 20%, and the last 20% is about designing scientific investigations. So this is how the assessment has been bifurcated percentage wise into different assessment objectives or different competencies. So now we understand that where NEP 2020 wants us to go, what kind of education system we are aiming for, where we are not just wanting children to gain knowledge, but we want them to be able to apply the knowledge, and we want to assess that how the child is able to apply that knowledge into real world scenarios. So our assessment must be having platforms where we offer them real world problems, authentic problems which are age appropriate. The evaluation must be continuous, daily basis, so that we can identify their weaknesses and strengths, and accordingly we can handhold each child so that all children get same learning outcomes by end of class 10. Okay. And here the children themselves should be clear about what are the learning outcomes they must be able to achieve, so that they can reflect on their work, assess how much is the level of their proficiency, or learn from their peers answers, and teachers can assess from daily assessment what are the extra support strategies that can be employed in the class to bring them all to the same learning outcome. So now assessment for learning, assessment as learning is more important than the summative assessment, year end assessment, which is assessment of learning. Okay. So now I will go on to show you how we can do this. So we come to the third part of our session, that how competency based assessment is to be achieved. So there are three strategies that I'm going to discuss. The first strategy is transforming traditional questions. What were the ways in which we were asking traditional questions, and how now competency based assessment requires us to transform those questions. So let us look at the first question. This was the way we would have asked about law of conservation of mass. State the law of conservation of mass. But now, if we want to address the competency of explaining phenomena scientifically, what would be a competency based questions on law of conservation of mass? So the question would go something like this. It's a very simple question. In an experiment, 10 gram of calcium carbonate are heated and the products are found to be 5.6 grams of calcium oxide and 4.4 gram of carbon dioxide. Explain how this observation supports the law of conservation of mass. So look at the change. Earlier we were only asking we were only trying to assess whether the child has the knowledge of law of conservation of mass. But now in competency based education, we are testing their competency to explain phenomena scientifically in a real world scenario. What is the real world scenario? Somebody has carried out an experiment and measured the masses of reactants and the products, and these masses are given. So now we want the child to be able to explain how this is supporting the law of conservation of mass. So now we are assessing what the child is able to do with his knowledge of law of conservation of mass, whether he can apply it in real life situation, and to by applying whether he can explain the observations or not. Right? So this is the shift we are required to make now. Another example of same strategy is this. Define an isotope, give one example. Now, how we would change it? Supposing we want the competency of interpreting data and evidence scientifically to be assessed. So, to assess this competency, how would we change this question? We would say a student analyzes three atoms and records the following data. Atom A has 17 protons, 18 neutrons. B has 18 protons, 18 neutrons. C has 17 protons, 20 neutrons. Based on this data, which two atoms are isotopes of the same element? Explain your choice. So now we are not asking him to define isotope and give examples. Now we are assuming that the child has the knowledge of isotope, and then we give him some data and see what he does with that knowledge. Is he able to use that knowledge to interpret the data and evidence? So that is the shift. Another example I'll give you from chemistry. What is the valency of chlorine in compound hydrogen chloride? This might have been a traditional question which is asking for some factual knowledge. Now, if we want to evaluate and designing scientific inquiry this competency, how we can change this question? A scientist wants to investigate the valency of the element chlorine by observing its reaction with hydrogen. Propose a simple procedure to determine its valency, justifying your reasoning. So now we are not asking for knowledge. We are assuming that child has the knowledge of valency of chlorine. But how this knowledge was arrived at by some kind of scientific investigation, and what could have been the design of that scientific investigation based on the knowledge that the child has, we are asking him to think about such a procedure, so that by giving such simple tasks, the child becomes proficient in being able to evaluate and design a scientific inquiry. Right? So this was strategy one, in which we wanted to transform the traditional questions into competency based questions. Going forward, the second strategy is the power of case studies. Now, case studies are very powerful because they offer real world scenarios to the students, which can be much more interesting than just facts given in the book. I'll give you one example. So there is this girl Rani. She goes to stay with her cousins Ria and Roshan in summers. While playing, minor quarrel breaks out, and Roshan starts teasing them by rolling his tongue at them. Now Rani tries to give it back to him, but to her dismay, she finds she is unable to roll her tongue. Can Ria roll her tongue? Yes, she could. So this is Ria and this is Rani's tongue. She is unable to roll it. So can you help Rani and Ria to find out if the rolling of tongue was an inherited trait? So now we want the children to devise a way by which Rani and Ria can find out whether rolling of tongue is an inherited trait. You know that the NCRT books talks about free and attached earlobes as inherited traits, hereditary traits, right? Now, this is another example on the same pattern. So, now if the children are able to devise a procedure, they can say that maybe they can talk to their family members and then make a tree of who can roll their tongues, who cannot. Rani does it with her family, grandmother, grandfather, or both sides of parents, and then parents, sisters, brothers, and like that. And similarly, can they do it with the all the students in the class, and then gather enough data through survey? So this will happen through survey. This will not happen through any hands-on experiment, right? So if the children are able to understand that even surveys are a powerful tool for investigating, then we have done our job. They have designed a scientific investigation, right? So, what competency this is testing? Evaluating and designing scientific inquiry. So, this was a case study here. Now, I'll give you another strategy, and that is assessment through lab work and inquiry based learning. Now, to be able to show you this, the power of this strategy, I will tell you a story only. Again, it is through case study only, but then it offers a chance for lab work and inquiry based learning. So, this is a story called Bocce Anyone. This is a very famous story by Richard Konisek Moran. There is a the specially abled child who is confined to a wheelchair, and he has no movement in his whole body except some movement in his wrist of right hand, and there is no movement in any other leg, or he cannot stand, and or his left limb also doesn't move. So, his friend went to, his friend's name is Raju, and he went to Italy in the summer and he learned to play this game Bocce, in which there is a set of balls. One ball is red colored ball, which is called Palino, and then there are five other balls which are called Bocce. So there are two teams minimum, and they all have a different colored set of bocce, and there is one palino. Palino is of a single color. For example, let us say red color is the palino. So one team has blue colored botches, these balls, and the other team has white colored botches. So there is a field which is drawn, and at one end of the edge of the field, the players stand, and one player throws the palino, which is, let us say, this. Sorry, white colored is the palino. It is thrown and it goes and comes to a stop at one particular place. Now, each team takes turns and throws the botches, which are red colored and blue colored for the two teams, and they have to aim so that the bocce comes as close to Palino as possible, and they get 5 trials because each one has 5 botches of different colors, and whoever manages to throw a bocce very close to Palino wins the game. But the problem is that Raju learned this game. He is able to run, he is able to use his legs and hands. But this child, his friend Ramesh, he is confined to the wheelchair. He cannot play. But he says he wants to play because Raju is his best friend, and whenever Raju comes back from school or from summer vacation, he comes and talks to Ramesh for hours telling about his experience. So now Ramesh wants to play bocce just like Raju. So can you devise a particular way by which he can play in spite of his uh, special handicap? So this is the case study which you are giving to the children. Now your strategy would be to assess how much they can think, and what strategy, your aim is to assess what they can think. So what strategy you are employing in the classroom? You are first eliciting preconceptions, and you ask them to pair and share and tell us what the boys, that is Raju and Ramesh, will have to do to make the bocce go where they want them to go. So they think and then come out with different ideas, and somebody comes out in your class, somebody comes out with the idea of a inclined plane. Some wooden plank can be fixed against the wheelchair of Ramesh, and then he can hold the ball in his right hand and release it. That's all he can manage to do. So now they have to investigate whether this idea will work or not, and how this idea will work, because Ramesh has to tell Raju at what angle the plank must be kept so that his ball travels and goes as near to Palino as possible. So this is what they come out with, and then they draw the best thinking chart of what are the concepts involved: velocity, momentum, acceleration, force, inertia. So the children are coming out with these concepts, and as a teacher, you are assessing all the time whether they are able to relate these variables to this real world situation or not. This is also an ability to connect the variables they studied in their books in the classroom, whether they can relate it to a real world situation or not. So this is assessment during learning only. They are learning, they are assessing themselves, and the teacher is also assessing how good has been the teaching, so that the children are able to connect it to the real world or not. And then they will come out with characteristics of the plank, the material of the surface, and the ball kya material hai. Then they might come up with hypothesis: the steeper the plank, the farther the ball travels; the longer the plank, the farther the ball travels; the rougher the surface, the lesser the distance traveled. And this would be actually all the hypothesis, right? So you are also assessing whether they are able to follow the scientific method that they have studied in junior classes or not. All the time you are assessing their capability of being able to frame hypothesis, being able to identify the variables which are involved in that particular situation. And then they are exploring. They will test their hypothesis by designing the experimentation. How they will design it: does the ball travel farther on a steeper plank, or on a longer plank, or is the distance reducing on rougher surface? And how they will test this hypothesis, they have to plan their investigation, they have to plan how they will measure, they have to plan how they will record the data. So they are planning their scientific investigation in totality, and then they will carry out the experiment, keeping it as a fair test, that they will change only one variable at a time and see its effect on the distance traveled by the ball. And then they will collect the data. So collection of data, tabulation of data, all these are skills involved in designing and scientific investigation. So you are testing, you are assessing their capability of being able to do that. Then they will explain the inferences based on the evidence. Where is the evidence? The data that they have collected. Then they will analyze the data, and then they will evaluate whether their hypotheses were right or not. They might find that heavier ball will go farther, steeper the plank, the farther the ball travels, the longer the plank, the farther the ball travels, the rougher the surface, the lesser the distance traveled. And then they will evaluate against their theory, that whatever they have studied in their theory about friction, about acceleration, about how the acceleration changes on an inclined plane, whether what they studied in theory corroborates, the practical data corroborates that theory or not. So this is how you can plan the whole teaching learning pedagogy in the classroom, which allows you to assess along the journey, during the carrying out of the project itself, during the conceptualization of scientific investigation itself, that whether the students are learning something, whether they are applying their theoretically taught knowledge or not. Okay, so that is what we mean by assessment for learning. And then, supposing one group has devised one method, they have the data, they make the presentation, what does the other group have to say about that? So when the other group gives the feedback, that will become assessment as learning, because a group is assessing the other group's performance, and by doing that they are learning themselves. So this is assessment as learning. Okay, now I give you one more example. Another example is another case study. This is named as Toad's Call. So Shubha was watching a toad in her pond. As the toad made noise, the pond rippled around it. Shubha noticed that the frequency of water waves changed at different temperatures. Next slide shows representations of the toad's call at different temperatures. She noticed that the temperature was the same in morning and evening, but during the day the temperature was hot. The next slide shows scaled models of the toad's call. Use the wave models below to determine if the toad is making the same waves as it calls out in the cool morning, warm midday, and cool evening. You get the point. She notices that frequency of water waves is changing during different times of the day because the temperature is different. And she records the toad calls in form of some models, which are these models. So you are giving the children this case study where the toad's call in the cool morning, warm midday, and cool evening is represented through these graphs, through these models. Now you are asking the children to fill in the amplitude, wavelength, and frequency for the three waves in the data table given below. So if the children understand, they're able to understand these graphs, they're able to analyze them, they're able to interpret them, what is what, then they will be able to fill the data here about the amplitude. If they understand that this number here gives the amplitude, so they will be able to do that. So look at this level. This gives the amplitude, this gives the amplitude, this gives the amplitude. What gives the wavelength? This distance gives the wavelength. And what is the frequency? That they have to understand that in same time period, one cycle, two cycle, and three cycles are completed, whereas here six cycles are completed, and here three cycles are completed. So by able to analyze this, can they fill this table? They can interpret the data from graph to a table or not. Another, so the student's response would be this, but what is the criteria? What proficiency you are checking? You are checking whether the child is able to identify the characteristic properties in the given mathematical representation for simple waves or not. So this is the competency or skill that you are checking. Then another question is, what are the similarities between the waves? Be sure to provide evidence from the data table in your answer. So this is the question. 3. What are the differences between the waves? Be sure to provide evidence from data table in your answer. So now again you are asking them to find patterns from the data. First you ask them to interpret the data by analyzing, and then you are asking them to find the patterns of similarity and difference. So what will be the response? Question similarities would be that waves 1, 2, and 3 have the same amplitude of 2 millimeter, but 1 and 3 have different wavelengths, and 1 and 3 have different frequencies, similar frequencies. Then difference क्या है? Wavelength. Wave 2 has wavelength 2 centimeter, whereas others have wavelength of 4 centimeter. Wave 2 has a frequency of 6, but 1 and 3 have a frequency of only 3. So now they are identifying the patterns. So what was the proficiency that you were checking? You were testing whether the child is able to use the given mathematical representation to identify similarity and difference of the characteristic properties. So question 4 says, is the toad making the same call at different temperatures throughout the day? Are any of the waves the same? What evidence can you provide to support your claim? So you see, nowhere you are asking for knowledge directly. You are testing their ability to do something, ability to analyze the data, ability to interpret the data, ability to identify patterns and relationships, and then make inferences. So in this question, what the student will say, wave and 1 and 3 have are same because the amplitude, wavelength, and frequency are the same. Now, the child can answer this only when he understands that two waves are identical only if their amplitude, wavelength, and frequency are same. So, traditionally, you might have asked, when are two waves called the same? And they would have written there when their amplitude, wavelength, and frequency are same. But here, you are not asking for the knowledge. You are assessing their ability to apply that knowledge in real world scenario. Okay, so that is the difference. So what was the criteria for assessment? What was it that you were checking? The child's ability to analyze the given mathematical representation to determine whether simple waves are the same based upon their characteristic properties. So, this inference the children are making. So, this is how competency based assessment looks different from traditional assessment. Traditional assessment tests the knowledge, but here we are testing their ability to apply their knowledge in real world authentic scenario with which the children can relate at their appropriate age and environment. The last one would be Zunuka watches a roller coaster. Now, this is Toran and Zunuka went to the state fair last weekend to ride the Boomerang, a roller coaster that everyone at school has been talking about. Before they went on the ride, Zunuka used her phone to record the roller coaster in action, and this is the video. So now you see, with advancement in technology, we can give such assignments in the class for assessment for learning. In final examination, which is pen and paper exam, we may not be able to give these questions. But our aim is not that they should just pass the exam. Our aim is that they should be able to apply the knowledge that we are teaching them in the classroom in real world scenario. So in classroom, to nurture that skill, we can give them these video based questions which will be more interesting to today's digital age learners, right? So supposing this video is given, now what is the case study? Back in the class, Torrance and Zunuka's teacher asked them to explain how the boomerang coaster works. Torrance goes first. He says the boomerang works because the kinetic energy it has after traveling down the hill, because of the kinetic energy. Since it has lots of kinetic energy, the coaster can move along the track really quickly without slowing down. Now, Zunuka listens to Torrent's claim, but thinks that transfer of potential and kinetic energy are playing a role in how the boomerang coaster works. So, what Zunuka is claiming? She says the boomerang works because the pull chain pulling the coaster up the first hill gives the coaster lots of gravitational potential energy. When the coaster goes back down the first hill, the potential energy becomes kinetic energy that can be used to go through the loops and then up the second hill. So, this is the scenario. Two children are making two claims about the working of boomerang roller coaster. Now the question is, how are Torrance and Zunuka's claims about how the boomerang coaster works similar to each other, and how are they different from each other? So what is the student response? Torrance and Zunuka both agree that the pull chain is important to why the coaster works. But Zunuka's claim is the only one that includes ideas about energy transfer. So, what is the criteria? You are checking through this question the ability to articulate an existing claim out of other competing claims that support to explain what happens to energy within a system when the kinetic energy of an object changes. And you are also checking the child's ability to identify agreement or disagreement between multiple claims. How? By using scientific principle that when kinetic energy of an object changes, there is inevitably some other change in energy, maybe energy in fields or thermal energy or energy of motion within the system at the same time. So whenever transformation of energy is happening in a system, one type of energy definitely changes into some other type of energy. This ability to use in a real life situation to identify the agreement or disagreement between multiple claims. So this is how the children will be able to assess a scientific argument, that whether one claim is better than the other and why. Is the claim one claim better? Is there any logical reasoning? Is there any counter example? Is there any evidence? So this is called explaining scientifically, giving logic, evidence, example, counter claim. Okay. So another question is, what evidence is available from the video that could be used to determine whether Zunuka's claim does a better job of explaining how the boomerang coaster works? So the student says when the coaster falls, it speeds up, gaining kinetic energy. As it moves through the coaster, it slows down at uphill sections and speeds up at downhill sections. When it gets to the second end, it goes up to nearly the same height as it did with the pull chain, indicating similar gravitational potential energy. So, what was the ability you were checking? Ability to identify appropriate and sufficient evidence from an observed phenomena that supported the existing claim. So you are asking them to identify appropriate and sufficient evidence. How does the evidence support Zunuka's claim? The student says as the coaster goes down the first hill, we see it speed up. The gravitational potential energy gained from pull chain up the first hill gets transferred to kinetic energy. When the coaster increases its height up the second hill, some of that kinetic energy goes back into potential energy, causing the coaster to slow down. When the coaster decreases height, potential energy goes back into kinetic energy, causing the coaster to speed up. So now you're checking the ability to describe how the evidence is supporting the claim. See, in a earlier question, you were asking them to identify the evidence. Here, you are checking their ability to describe how evidence support the existing claim. So this is how we have to go into minute skills, minute abilities to nurture the broader competencies. So that's all from my side today. These are my contact details. You can look up on LinkedIn or Facebook, or you can join this WhatsApp group where I give information about time to time webinars. I hope that in this webinar, you were able to get the desired inputs for the competency based. Uh, am I visible? Am I visible? Yes. I hope that you understood that why we need competency based assessment. What are the competencies in science that we are looking to nurture? And then what are the three strategies through which we can assess whether our students have gained the scientific competencies CBSE desires us to nurture in the students? Thank you so much. If you have any questions, uh, please ask.
Thank you, ma'am, for the session, ma'am.
Thank you so much. So, if there are no questions, then I will check out from here. Thank you so much. Cannot see any questions.